This is Duke University.
If we want humans to propagate, if we want humans to have children, we have created a system of institutionalized inequality.
And the United States is one of, I think, only two countries in the world where we don't have paid maternity leave. As probably some of you know, in the Scandinavian countries, you can often get a year of paid maternity leave and other support after that. So I think that is clear.
And actually in Sweden,
yeah,
the man has to take a part of that leave. It can't be...
Right, right. They've tried to legislate in having men use part of that leave. So, so clearly paid maternity leave or parental leave is something very important. We don't have paid sick leave in many jobs. And I think one of the things that is so important to remember is that these conversations that these authors are having, Anne-Marie Slaughter and Sandberg and the others, are talking about a very, very, very thin slice of the American workforce, right? That the women that they're really talking to and talking about represent just I wish I had the number, but a tiny percentage. The vast majority of people are more concerned about actually having a paid sick day, so that if they get sick or their child gets sick, they won't lose their job because they stay home to take care of that child. Or raising the minimum wage. So we really need governmental, I think, governmental investment in childcare, in paid maternity leave, in sick leave, in all kinds of forms of support that recognize the interest of the state in supporting families and children.
The fact that the school day is organized from 7:30 in the morning until 5 at night or 3 at night, and plus all the extracurricular activities, and that it stops at the end of May or beginning of June and doesn't start again until September, that doesn't fit with any career path I know. Certainly most men wouldn't say, okay, I've got to leave, I've got to pick up my child at school, it's 3 o'clock, and I think I'm going to take off for 3 months this summer because my kids are home this summer. You know, that you have to, that it's the default, that it's the woman that's to somehow figure that out and bear children. It means that we have a world that hasn't at all figured out how you can do that equitably. That in other words, there is nothing, there's no support, institutional support for women to live both a life as a parent and a successful career life. It's not that there's, it's difficult. You're doing it against all of the structures that are in place almost to deny those dual roles. So I think anyone who does it is amazing. Anyone who does it is succeeding beyond what our society is institutionalized as a success path.
You know, again, it's really tempting to think about the board of directors and say something like, let's mandate that half of the board of directors needs to be women and half need to be men. And that's kind of, you know, affirmative action at the top level. And I think some of it is important. And I think that some of it is important because of role models. If you think about people thinking about what can I achieve, and if they see role models that are have achieved greatness from their own gender, ethnicity, and so on, there's a bigger chance that they would do it. So I think for a short time, some affirmative, high-level affirmative action would actually be useful in terms of creating role models. But long-term, it's about the viability of everyday life from this perspective, and not about that level. The people who are really doing well, we should worry less about inequality, and we should think about the people who are having a real struggle. about the university environment. People get a BA, an MA, a PhD, a postdoc, and then they get a faculty position. So let's say it's early 30s, people get a faculty position. And let's say it takes 7 years to get tenure. And the pressure of early days academic work, by the way, always people told me that the early days are pressure and then it goes away. It doesn't go away, it just stays the same. But initially you don't realize it, you think it'll go away. You know, by the time people get to a tenure decision, it's kind of late 30s, maybe 40s. Not a good time if you think a biological clock. Now, there's really not much we can do about the biological clock. And if you look at the probability, for example, of having kids with Down syndrome and all kinds of other challenges, it grows up dramatically with age. I mean, it's a cost for society. So imagine we were a university and we understood that men and women have different biological clocks. Do we want to create a different tenure clock for men and women? Now, it feels quite offensive and very unequal to say that. But imagine, for example, that we say, men, okay, given the time you graduate, there's no particular hurry, take 7 years. Women, we're going to make a decision about you after 3 years. Now, there's something incredibly unfair about it. If you make decisions with less data, you sometimes might not give tenure to women who should get it. Sometimes you might not give it to people who give it to people who shouldn't, or don't give it to people who should. You could make all kinds of mistakes. But as a social mechanism, you've basically decoupled tenure from the biological clock. And I think it's an interesting question of whether we're willing to take such mechanism.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.